This video is part of a professional learning toolkit which is based on the What Works Clearinghouse Practice Guide, Improving Reading Comprehension in Kindergarten through 3rd grade. You will learn about one of the 6 evidence-based comprehension strategies shown to impact reading comprehension as defined in the practice guide. This video highlights the comprehension strategies summarizing and retelling. When someone asks you, "How was your day?" what do you say? You likely give them the high-level summary, maybe a few key details, but probably not the play-by-play, word-for-word account of your entire day from sun-up to sundown. The concept is similar when we ask students to read and then summarize or retell the main idea of a text. According to the Improving Reading Comprehension in Kindergarten through 3rd grade practice guide, summarizing involves briefly describing, verbally or in writing, the main points of what you have read in your own words. In retelling, students orally recount a text. Summarizing and retelling are intentional mental practices that help students understand what is happening in the text and make it easier to comprehend and remember what they read. To summarize or retell, students must not only identify and process the essential ideas of a passage or a complete text, but also convey them to others. Summarizing and retelling are reading strategies that can be leveraged to help students comprehend both narrative and informational texts. Teachers can first teach the strategies using a short passage, perhaps a paragraph or a very short narrative text before moving to a longer text. For younger students, a summary or retelling may include the beginning, middle, and end. For older students, it may focus on a more structured accounting of elements of the plot for narrative texts or the main ideas and details for informational texts. Our role as teachers is to explicitly teach about and model summarizing and retelling by using strategies that help students process, understand, and remember key ideas and main points in the text while discarding less important information and details. This mental process of evaluating text to identify main points and how they contribute to the overall meaning is key to being a successful reader. For narrative texts, teachers can support students by asking questions that prompt them to identify key points in the story and differentiate them from less important information. For example, teachers might ask, "What is the big idea that the text was about? What were some of the important things that happened in the beginning, middle, and end of the text? Are there any details or information that could have been left out without changing the meaning or ending of the story? How can we describe the important information or events in our own words?" These supports help students to distill the most important parts of a narrative text on their own, which is necessary to becoming a successful reader. There are a few suggestions for supporting students to summarize or retell in the practice guide on page 13. These activities can help support you in practicing the strategies with your students. Here is another way, beyond the activities outlined in the practice guide, to engage your students in the evidence-based strategy of summarizing and retelling. This activity is called In a Nutshell. Provide students with a short narrative text they can write on, or write a narrative paragraph on chart paper. First, read the full text aloud. Then, reread, or for a longer text, stop at key points to discuss that segment of the story. Ask students to highlight or circle important ideas in the narrative and to cross out details that aren't necessary for the storyline. Discuss why they chose certain sentences as important and why others were not. Then, have students craft a brief summary in their own words that includes information from the highlighted sentences. For younger readers, you may want to ask them to retell what's on a particular page rather than waiting until the end of the book to summarize, or break the narrative into parts and summarize each part. Use prompts such as, "Now what happened?" or "What changed in our story in this section?" These activities should be done as a whole class at first, then support students to work in pairs, and then to work independently. This process models a gradual release of responsibility, which allows students to develop and hone their understanding of the strategy before demonstrating it independently. These strategies can be combined with other reading strategies described in the What Works Clearinghouse Improving Reading Comprehension in Kindergarten through 3rd Grade Practice Guide, such as activating prior knowledge and predicting, monitoring, clarifying, and fixing up, and inferencing, which you can find in other videos in the toolkit. Summarizing and retelling are critical strategies for reading comprehension and for being prepared to read and learn new, increasingly complex storylines and texts across subject areas and grades. Students need your help to develop and strengthen their ability to leverage summarizing and retelling so they can become successful and independent readers.